Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm Mike McCarthy from Sporting News, and I'm delighted to moderate this rights holder roundtable on the connected fan. Now, we all know fans are more connected than they've ever before. Twitter is like a giant sports bar, and fans are watching games on 2 or 3 screens. But how do rights holders keep up with these developments, and how do they gain new audiences and drive revenue? Well, we're going to ask 3 terrific experts. Second on my right, Laura Louisi is the Senior Vice President of Business Partnerships and Rights Partnerships for Perform Media Group. She works directly with international leagues and federations. On my far right, Mickey Lawler is the President of the Women's Tennis Association, and she is responsible for international growth, marketing, and fan engagement. And finally, on my right, Chris Slosher is Senior Vice President and General Manager of MLS Digital, where he oversees digital strategy and content creation. Let's get right to it. Laura, how has the connected fan changed over the last 5 years, and what are some tips to reach them?
So Perform are a digital-first business, and we obviously spend a lot of time trying to understand what we call the new breed of fan. And our research and analysis points to 3 key trends, one of which is that nowadays the new younger fan, they follow players and not teams. When I was growing up, I'm a soccer fan, and when I was growing up, I supported the team that my parents followed, and I didn't think anything of it. Looking back, it was a terrible idea because we've been bottom of the Premier League a number of times. But now, young sports fans follow multiple teams, and they follow the players across those teams. When those teams move, when those players move teams, they follow the different teams. So it's not unusual now for an 8 or 9-year-old kid in London to wear a Bayern Munich shirt, wear a Real Madrid shirt, wear a Barcelona shirt. The second trend that we see is that people want more from their content. They want insight, they want knowledge, they want to learn something that they haven't learned before. One of the things that we focus on is around data. We have a great partnership with MLS for our Opta Data brand, and that provides a lot of insight and deep level stats around games, particularly around editorial and trying to draw insight out that fans want. And they want to go behind the scenes. They want to know who the players are. They want to know what makes them tick. They want to know what goes into their training. So more and more on the production side, we have to make sure that we're telling those stories. And finally, and this goes without saying, in 2018, they want that content everywhere. Each platform, each device, wherever they are, on the move, every platform they consume on. So, as rights holders, as partners of rights holders, we have to make sure that we are planning our distribution strategies around live content, around highlights, and across, the sort of behind-the-scenes production to make sure we're on all of those platforms.
Mickey, you've been a leader in the tennis business industry for 30 years. What are you seeing?
Well, it's amazing to have lived this long and and to have seen the different generations of sports consumers, because I was on a panel this morning and I explained that at the US Open last fall there was a sleepless night and there was a classic match between Connors and McEnroe on TV, and the commentators were arguing about whether the ball was in or out, and the one guy thought it was in, the other guy thought it was out. They had a big argument about it until a decision was made by the chair umpire, and that was it. On to the next point. And now it is so dynamic, and for every sports league, this connected fan represents a massive opportunity, because every stakeholder now has a voice, every athlete has a voice. The fan has control over what they want to see, when they want to see it, how they want to see it. There is the downside that the attention span of the fan is getting shorter and shorter, but at the same time, that gives you the opportunity to go with highlights, to send it out in any way that it's going to be consumed. So we started, we partner with Perform on the live media side, And we've seen the transformation of Perform going from OTT into broadcast, which they did thanks to the WTA, because they were going to lose the broadcast rights if they didn't step up, because the data in the 90s, early 2000s, the data was sort of handed to Perform or anybody who wanted it, and then the data became very valuable, so it was monetized, and Perform said, well, hang on a second, let's partner and do the broadcast rights as well. So we changed our complete strategy, going from pan-European to global, country by country, which was a massive success. You know, there was a little period of adjustment, but now we went a little bit further and started WTA Networks, which is our digital platform, and there we can go and really focus on, you know, Simona Halep just won the French Open, so it's over to all the relevant content that is for Romania or Denmark, or, you know, so you really have to inhabit the space and be everywhere where your fan is. And it's a lot of work, but it's a massive opportunity.
Chris, your fan base is so young, so energetic about their clubs. Talk about what they're looking for.
So, thank you. MLS has some of the youngest fans in pro sports here in the United States. We focus very primarily on the 18 to 34-year-old fan base, young urban millennial fans. Our fans, similar to WTA fans, want access to content on any device at any time, in real time. They want control over how they consume the content. They want to connect with our great young players from around the world. But they also want the ability to watch that great game on a beautiful television. And so it's important, you know, I think we always think millennials and mobile. Sure, that's a great connection. But if you're investing and you really want to watch a 90-minute soccer game and you have access to a great HD TV, you're going to want to watch the game on that beautiful screen on the wall. And so it's about partnering with companies that can deliver that content on any device. And more, we don't have deals that would inhibit that. Every media deal right now really is about providing access on any device. The details may be different, right? A deal with ESPN, who broadcasts a game a week here in the United States, includes all digital platforms. Similarly, a deal with Twitter, who also broadcasts a game a week for us, includes the ability for them to, you know, certainly stream to your phone, but to stream via the Twitter apps to televisions. And so we're making sure that content's available on any platform, any device. The other thing I think young fans are apt to do is multitask. And there's been all this talk over the years about second screen, and I don't know that anyone's truly figured out the second screen, other than we all know that there's a conversation that happens oftentimes on Twitter, but across text message and a whole range of devices. And so we think a lot about how do we provide not just the main 90 minutes of action, but real-time highlights, GIFs, great photos, you know, reactions, funny things that the fans can share amongst themselves to help spur that conversation beyond just the main game.
Yeah. Laura, have you seen a bit of a divide between older fans and younger fans, in that older fans are more interested in the game, the match, the content itself, whereas younger fans want to go into the training strategies, they want to go into the locker room and see videos, they want the behind-the-scenes information that they really look for?
Yeah, I think that, you know, nowadays a young person has many ways they can spend their time. There's a lot of things competing for their attention. That might be their smartphone. It could be, you know, hanging out with their mates. It could be, you know, playing sport, being active. So I think you just have to work a lot harder to get them to want to engage with your sport, with your content. And I think part of that is showing them who these players are, taking them behind the scenes and making sure that they want to watch the games, like creating a reason for them to tune in. And I think, you know, as part of our partnerships that we have with all of our leagues and federations, we invest our time and effort into creating that content that makes people want to tune in. Obviously, WTA is a great example of that. We do production of every single live match, but in addition to that, we also are on site at every single event creating that content so that we can get to know who the players are. And we've seen, you know, great success, particularly internationally, in those, you know, some of these markets where there are 1 or 2 star players really growing because we are committing to doing that coverage. And the same with, we work with FIBA, who are the International Basketball Federation, and they've just restructured their calendar, and we created a content series called This Is My House to drive interest in these new qualification matches. And we created that, and we gave it to broadcasters, players, teams, everybody that wanted to show it. And we got over 130 million engagements, and the reach was nearly 1 billion. So I think it's about investing in creating that content that makes people want to watch. And then in reality, everybody is interested in the live game.
Yeah. Mickey, everybody knows the WTA attracts a very affluent, sophisticated fan, but I also understand you're bringing in a lot of younger fans. Can you tell us about how you're doing that?
Well, actually, with the help of Perform, we used to, in our first contract cycle with Perform, we produced about 800 live matches, and Perform has expanded this to 2,000 matches, so all the singles matches and then some doubles matches. We're increasing that rate of production at a magnificent pace, actually, because before it was television, and as Chris said, it's your nice HD TV, your 4K TV, and the older fan watches that, but then, and then you had your B product on the OTT platforms. Well, now the OTT platforms, the streaming quality is so good that you can show everything. And so if your broadcaster takes, let's say, 10 matches, and you have 20 matches left to show, you can show that in the OTT platforms, and the fans demand it. And we do traditionally appeal to an older, affluent demographic, but that, first of all, that older demographic is very demanding, and they do, like, we went for about 9 months, we didn't have WTA TV, because we used to be combined with the ATP, then we uncombined, and so we had a transition period with no OTT, and the fans went crazy. In fact, they were saying, Mickey Lawler's single-handedly ruining tennis. That was when I had the sleepless nights and watched the Classic.
Right.
But so you can see that even they, there's a complete merger now where you turn on your TV and you decide, are you going to watch cable, if you still have it, or are you going to watch Amazon, Netflix, or whatever? It's your choice, and that gives you a huge amount of control. And then we have to provide the content. So yes, our average audience went down from 56 to 52, I believe, as reported by the Sports Business Journal, and that was great. But on social media, that goes way down. And then we offered doubles matches through Facebook, and the average audience went to 18 to 34. And, we started in China with semifinals match, and we had 800,000 viewers right off the bat. So, it's a good start, and it shows you that there's just tremendous appetite for sports. But you have to figure out ways to engage. And to me, that's just beginning. Of course, in football, soccer, you've got that. In NFL, you've got that. NBA. But in tennis, we just launched a fantasy platform, and you can see that that's what's necessary.
Yeah. Mickey, the amazing thing, I think, over the last 5 or 6 years is you used to see fans just be happy that you were on a platform.
Yeah.
Right? We used to get messages from MLS fans saying, oh my God, it's amazing, MLS has an app on whatever the platform was. Today, not only do they want you to have the app, they want the content to be incredible, and they hold you, your fans hold you the same standard as the best apps that are out there.
Yes.
And so the amount that we have to spend both on the technical side, making sure the products are really strong, but also investing in the core production and the content to really make sure that is at the right level and it works and the stream is flawless and it can handle all the huge crowds we see live. That expectation has just gone up and up and up, and that's been, I think, really interesting over the last couple of years to watch that phenomenon.
Yeah, and I think you need to be careful with not wanting to commercialize everything, because the content has to be authentic, and you see a huge difference, especially on social, sponsored content versus real content, non-sponsored content, and that at least shows me that you need to find the right balance. It's important to respect that.
Chris, we're in the midst of the World Cup. How are MLS clubs capitalizing on this interest?
World Cup is amazing. Once every 4 years, obviously, it's a true global sporting event. We're thrilled that FIFA decided to give the 2026 World Cup to North America. So that presents now a real 8-year opportunity and runway. We take the first 10 days of the World Cup off, give our teams a break, let the World Cup build. But starting this past weekend, we were back. And so our clubs are hosting viewing parties. They're hosting all sorts of experiences in their stadiums. They're opening their stadiums on non-game days to have fans come in and watch these matches. It's a chance to break out of the soccer fan bubble, which we know happens and is growing. But there are fans that only pay attention to soccer once every 4 years. Yeah. And so this is our chance to go capture them, talk to them, understand who they are, capture data. One of the things we do every 4 years is run a big bracket challenge with the ability to go capture names that we can then use to market to throughout the course of a cycle. But it's one of those, and we've seen with Fox and Telemundo, we've seen great rating numbers in the United States so far. And we think that'll continue just to grow throughout the tournament. And every 4 years, it's another high. Of course, we would love for the U.S. to be there. That was not a fun day when they failed to qualify. But I think watching the games, all of us have just more hunger to see it come back in 22 and host in 26.
Yeah. Any thoughts on how we get the U.S. back into the tournament?
I would argue we should have been there this year, but I'm not a coach. No, one of the things that we're investing really significantly in is youth development. All of our clubs, you may not know this, have academies from basically U12 all the way up through 18, 19. Many of our teams then have a second team and then the first team. And so more and more our players are coming through this pipeline, and the players coming out of these academies are now really at the world-class level. We're seeing our teams go toe-to-toe with some of the biggest clubs in the world at the youth level. And so we think this pipeline of talent will just continue to grow, and hopefully the national team will take advantage of it.
Yeah. Chris, you were directly involved in MLS's deal with Twitter to stream some games. Talk about the outlook for these social media platforms, and then I want to ask all of you where you think this is going. We've all been waiting years for them to come into sports in a big way, and when is it going to happen?
So first, I'd say we're thrilled with our existing media partnerships with ESPN, Fox, Univision here in the United States. Those have been phenomenal partners for us on all platforms, as I talked about earlier. But it is fun to see the Twitters, YouTubes, Amazons, Facebooks of the world starting to think about live sports. We've done deals with all of those companies in one way, shape, or form or another. And so it's good for us to see those companies coming in. I think each one of them brings a little bit of a different mentality, a little different product set, a little different business model, whether it's a direct subscription, it's bundled as part of Prime, it's included as part of YouTube TV, Twitter, it's free. So I think they're all playing around with different business mechanics. But as a rights holder, it's great to have more folks interested in bidding for rights. I don't think any of us think a Twitter deal is going to put ESPN out of business tomorrow. But it's great to have another person sitting at the table. One of the most interesting launches recently has been DAZN. We did a partnership with DAZN in Canada to take about 250 or 300 games and stream them to fans in the Canadian marketplace. Early days, but that's been really successful. DAZN launching here in the U.S. later this year. That's interesting for us as it's a pure play sports subscription. We also have a big deal with ESPN for ESPN Plus, another pure play sports subscription. And so the model will continue to evolve, but it's fundamentally it's more sports for our fans. It's a better way to connect, and that's a positive.
Yeah.
Mickey, what are you thinking of the social media platforms?
Well, I think that they're very quickly becoming legitimate networks, and it's very interesting to see, for example, Amazon did the show All or Nothing before really going into live rights, right? And so, they got a lot of traction. It was fantastic. Amazon Originals does an incredible job. And with Amazon, you've got an integrated world where you can watch live sports, you can see what's going on behind the scenes with Originals, you can use their and selling intelligence to better understand the fan. So, to me, it's a brilliant model, and it is something that we're going to see more of because of its success, and it makes sense, and that's what we do with the intelligence that technology has allowed us to have. So I see that they're going to be networks at the table, absolutely.
Yeah, and that was one of the interesting things Twitter told us about our deal. They're not guessing on what their users want. They use their data, they see what people are talking about, and then they go out and they try to do deals with those things that people are talking about. And so for MLS, they saw the young fan base was really over-indexing in Twitter usage. They thought this could be successful, and so they came to us and we had a conversation about a 3-year deal with them, which was launched this year, and so far it's been phenomenal.
Yeah, congrats on that deal. But you're right, they're very definitive about what they want. They don't fish around. They come in there with a lot of data. Laura, what are the rights holders and the leagues telling you? You deal with a lot of them across the world. What are they telling you?
Yeah, so what they're saying to us, I think what's really important and what the social platforms have done is they've created, I guess, a little bit more competition, obviously, against some of the traditional broadcasters. Those that own rights and try and monetize rights, that's always great because we want people to want to show the content. And as Chris said, Twitter have identified that MLS content is very important for them, and they've actively approached you and want to do that deal, then that's great because, what we all want is for our live rights to sit on platforms where people really want to show them and invest in promoting the coverage and doing more around production. What we're doing as rights holders and companies that commercialise rights are trying to identify which are those platforms that want to come in for the rights, and then trying to create a way for them to sort of dip their toe, because it's effectively what's happening at the moment. So how can you carve up what you have to create a package that's maybe one, if we're talking about soccer, one game a week, or if we're talking about tennis, maybe one specific tournament where that has maybe some relevance for them for a market that they're trying to go into. And then once that has been proven and been tested, and I think increasingly you'll see them starting to pay larger rights fees. But yeah, I think it's early days, and I think they're testing it out. But as I say, there are more and more of these deals being done. In the UK recently, Amazon announced a package with the Premier League, which is the first time the Premier League will be shown on a non-linear broadcaster ever. So yeah, it's exciting times for us all. And as Chris said, Perform have invested in DAZN, which is a pure digital broadcaster. It's a slightly different model, and it's subscription only. But I think the fact that people want to consume content on digital platforms is obviously great for all of us, and particularly for what we're trying to achieve.
Very specific to the U.S. market, one of the areas of the most innovation right now is actually on the local side, where there have been historically these RSNs. We're seeing a lot of activity, a lot of companies asking and inquiring about, is there the ability to take local rights over the top, either exclusively over the top or put it on some sort of over-the-air network and then have the digital rights go to somebody else on an over-the-top basis. And that's been really interesting to think about, a deal in Chicago or a deal in Orlando and what that might look like.
That's a very good point to remember. We always talk about the national networks, but you forget the RSNs, and they're a big part of the Fox Disney deal and everything else. Where is the platform right now for the connected sports fans? Is it Twitter? We all know if we were trying to reach media, it would be Twitter. But where would the platform be for the connected sports fan?
I don't know that it's just one. I think there are many. I think the fan is going to Twitter for maybe instant news and analysis. They're going to Instagram to see great photos, to see highlights. They're going to Facebook to talk to their family and share game experiences with their family and friends. They're going to official sites for news analysis, cutting it behind the scenes, whatever the premium content may be. I think there's no one-stop shop anymore. Yep. Not that I'm sure there was ever a one-stop shop, but I think the number of sources has probably only increased over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think that you're absolutely right. And I think that the important point is that you have to know who the audience is on those platforms and know what they want from the experience, and make sure the content is tailored to that. So you can't just put the same clip on Twitter, that you put on Facebook, that you put on YouTube. And, people say that people don't watch long-form content anymore. They actually do, particularly on YouTube, for example. People might watch a 30-minute documentary, but if you put that on Twitter, no one would watch it. So I think it's about understanding what each of those platforms gives to their audience and making sure that you create the right stuff that resonates for those platforms.
That's a very good point, We look to China to really show us some trends. In China, we did the first major digital deal with the company called iQIYI that went public in the US about a month ago. And they were traditionally an entertainment channel. And in China, you've got the central television, China Central TV, that controls everything. And so these digital platforms have come out as a result to give fans choices. And what we see on iQIYI that has a lot of success is user-generated content. They love user-generated content. And so that is a little bit new for me, at least, because, if you have a partnership with DAZN or with Amazon or with ESPN, you don't have that user-generated window, and they use it a lot. So it's a big deal, and I think that that's coming to the West as well.
Yeah. Your point about one size fits all, it leads into my next question about international. If you're trying to reach international fans, international markets, even though it's tempting to do what you've done around the world and it's probably a lot cheaper, do you need to specialize as much as possible according to the country, the team, the player?
Absolutely. Yes. And that starts it's all about personalization now. And so it starts at home, here or wherever home is. And for us, as a global sport and the leading female global sport platform, it's very important to be culturally relevant and to know exactly what fans in Israel want versus fans in the UK versus fans in France. And, the French people follow the French players. And I gave you the Simona Halep example and Serena Williams. Serena, the U.S. Open women's final 2 years ago was sold out before the men's final for the first time in history because Serena was going for her 20th I think it was her 20th slam. And so then she got beaten in the semis. But that probably wouldn't have happened at the French Open or at Wimbledon. We hope it's going to happen everywhere soon. But yes, it has to be relevant to this audience, and that's why the job is mammoth, because you're covering the world.
Yeah.
Starting last season, we actually launched a automated highlight system using AI and machine learning that can customize the highlight pack based on rules that we give it. And one of the key things that we do is we create individualized highlights for different regions and different countries of the world so that you can customize which players show up in that highlight pack. And that's been, for our international broadcast partners, that's been a huge win to be able to provide them that baseline highlight that is differentiated and personalized for their market. But one of the things, Mickey said is, if you think about, now we are thinking about customizing content for all these different distribution platforms. We're also thinking about now customizing for all these different countries.
Yeah.
The number of permutations of videos, especially that we have to put out on any game night, is incredible. And so that's where AI, machine learning, some of these other tools and techniques can really help us, because otherwise the staffing requirement, if you had to do this all manually with people and staffing, would just be astronomical. And so we're really starting to see some of this new technology help make that problem a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Lauren, how is Perform tackling this?
Yeah, so our experiences are very similar. Clearly, on Mickey's side of things with WTA, we touched on it earlier, making sure that every single match is produced is the first starting point, because we can go to each individual broadcaster across Europe and internationally, and they know that irrespective of which court that player's on, or how early in the tournament is, who they're playing against, they can guarantee that they can show that locally relevant player. So I think that's the starting point.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that every single matches produced. And then secondly, what Chris is saying is absolutely right. I think using technology to make sure that you can create that really localized content is key. We see that in Germany with DAZN. We are the rights holder for NBA. We're the broadcaster for NBA. We also run the NBA.com local portal. So we know exactly what type of clip will drive interest in Germany. And it may well be that Steph Curry has had a record-breaking performance. That will not get the same amount of views as Dirk Nowitzki with an average game.
Right.
So with technology, it allows you to say, right, we want to have the best every single play from Dirk Nowitzki, 90 seconds, and it goes out to all of the publishers in Germany, and we know that that's going to drive engagement. So yeah, I think you have to use that technology because, as you say, it would be impossible to try and create that off the bat. And really, the production teams in Perform now, we focus them on the real editorial stuff. So how can they tell a story? How can they tell a story about a player's upbringing, or do something that allows people to really connect with the players? And then for the sort of the in-game action itself, actually, a lot of that automated technology does a good enough job.
Yeah.
That was amazing. When we tried to put in the automated highlight system, we kept running into issues with our staff who would look at the highlight clips and bring up really minute little issues. And we kept scratching our heads saying, what is the problem here? Why are these guys just not pushing this through and using it? And we realized that they were actually, rightfully so, really worried about the impact of this technology on their jobs. And we said, guys, this isn't about cutting staff or making, this more economical. This is about us letting the easy content go and be automated so that we can focus our staff on really high value content, telling those stories, doing stuff that a machine just couldn't do. And once we got through that, then the adoption really went.
Yeah.
But we did have to get over that hurdle.
We had a similar situation with streaming press conferences. In tennis, we never used to do anything that advanced. So we started doing that, and the media went bananas. And so did the tournament directors, because, wait a second, you're going to have the media stay home because now they're not going to come to us because you're streaming. So we said, well, would you rather have the tournament covered by 13 journalists, or would you want to have it seen by 33,000 people? And it takes, people are very scared of technology, and it takes a little bit of time to provide reassurance that this is actually good. But another point I wanted to make that was pivotal in my memory was when Yao Ming was recruited to the Houston Rockets, and what that did to that team was unbelievable. And you can look at the numbers. I think it was 180% growth overnight, and the business that was created for the Rockets because they recruited Yao Ming. And it's the same with Beckham. You need to show MLS in England because you've got all these players that come from European countries that now make MLS an international property, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, we actually have players now from 70 countries around the world, which is just
fantastic.
amazing.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. The athletic superstars are rock stars now, and they're on the same level. But unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank everybody for coming, and please join me in a round of applause for a great panel.